Hey, I think this is a little bit interesting. Can I borrow a Bill Simmons thing here and go conspiracy Kyle?
Man, I love whenever we can borrow a Bill Simmons bit. Like it's kind of my favorite thing in podcasting. Shout out to Bill Simmons. He's, obviously one of the forefathers of sports podcasting. But he just has his things and I love all of them. So yes, please go ahead.
He was on the Zach Lowe show and wouldn't stop talking. I'm like, brother, let Zach cook right now. You need to get out the way. Anyways, separate thing. I kind of think, and we have not seen an official list of 30 visits yet for the 49ers. So this take could change. But based on what we know, I kind of think the 49ers are going to take an offensive lineman in the first round because this is separate from the ESPN mock, which we'll talk about in a second. But remember when they drafted Mike McGlinchey in 2018? There was like no inkling that they had any interest in Mike McGlinchey at number 9.
Sure.
And they drafted. And then you look at their visits. It's a lot of defensive linemen, of course, but it's not. There's some of the top guys. Michael Williams, I think, has been in there. Kenneth Grant been in there. Walter Nolan's been in there for sure. These first round.
Tyleik Williams, Ohio State's own.
Tyleik Williams, potential back end of the first round guy, but more of a depth guy. And there's been a lot of day 2 and day 3 defensive linemen in the mix. I don't think I've seen any of the top offensive linemen among their 30 visits.
Yeah.
And this makes me wonder if they're doing they're bringing in the top defensive line guys, of course, just to get to know them. And if one of them blows them away, then maybe they change course. But to me, it looks like they're visiting with all these defensive linemen and trying to send the message, oh, we're looking at defensive line. We're looking at defensive line. And then lo and behold, come the 11th pick, they're going with an offensive lineman who was not on anybody's radar because of the lack of visit.
Right.
I kind of wonder if they're doing the Blinchy thing again.
So, yeah. And so I think that's an interesting jumping off point into the Kelvin Banks discussion. The offensive lineman from Texas, who Mel Kiper and Field Yates mocked to the 49ers at 11th overall. And he hasn't been somebody that we've really seen associated with the 49ers or really discussed all that much with the 49ers. But when you do a little bit of digging, it sounds like, to your point, it sounds like sort of a Mike McGlinchey situation in that, oh, the 49ers have all these needs elsewhere on the defensive line, but it's like, oh, maybe they just really like Kelvin Banks. And I think it would make sense. And you read Dane Brugler in The Beast, one of the bullet points in his strengths that really stands out to me, particularly like for the 49ers, I think they really just need to emphasize like character and work ethic. Agreed. And like guys who will become leaders in the room. Like obviously talent is a big part of that, but like when you talk about DeForest Buckner and Eric Armstead, the culture setting and just, I mean, it's cliche and whatever, but it actually matters. Like when you talk about culture setters on the Niners, like it's not that just Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, George Kittle, Brock Purdy, all those dudes are like good players. It's also they are behind the scenes like guys who elevate the rest of the room just with their presence and their work ethic. Right. So when it comes to Kelvin Banks, one of the strengths that Dane Brugler mentioned, his last bullet point was humble team captain who is all business. And then he quotes Texas head coach Steve Sarkisian, whenever somebody comes to me and asks, Coach, what do I need to do and how do I need to do it? I say, be like Kelvin.
Man.
And so that to me like speaks to like if you think he's worth, if he's your 22nd ranked prospect, if it could be the character that gets him to 11. Like if the 49ers have conviction that they're like, no, this dude will come in, he'll learn from Trent Williams for a year or two, and he's going to be a tone setter for our organization and somebody who we can rely on, a la Joe Staley, who was a back end of the first round pick. And maybe he doesn't have the 34-inch arms, but he's at 33 and a half. And we can talk about his wingspan too. But like, it would make sense to me. Would I love the pick as much as like a defensive lineman there? Maybe not. But if the 49ers believe that they can get a defensive lineman in the second or third round that is not that much worse than the defensive linemen who are projected to go in the first half of the first round, then that to me is a justifiable decision. And ultimately, if the 49ers take defensive linemen with 2 of their first 3 picks, and the other one is offensive line. Like I will absolutely see the logic in that, because to me, ultimately, the 49ers have to improve the trenches in this draft.
Yep. That has to be the top priority, right? The thing with Banks is whether he plays right tackle in year one or left guard in year one is neither here nor there for me. If they're taking an offensive lineman at number 11, that player has to be the heir apparent to Trent Williams and has to be able to play that position at a high level. It can't be, well, he might be able to play tackle, but we kind of think he's a guard and he'll play guard right away for sure. And we'll figure out as we go if he can play tackle or not. No, they have to have that conviction that he's going to be a left tackle in the NFL and is going to play it at a high level.
He played. He didn't miss a game at Texas. He made 42 starts, all at left tackle. And so we're talking about a 5-star recruit. I think one of the most interesting things when it comes to the arm length discussion, and I don't really, I don't want to say I'm an offensive line guru and I can watch the tape and, I feel like I have a pretty good idea of like how good a player is when I watch him play. It's a little bit more difficult for offensive linemen for me. But the arm length thing, so the 33.5 inches is basically right between Colton McKivitz and Jalen Moore. And Colton McKivitz had 33 and 3/4 inch arms, and Jalen Moore has 33 3/8. So with Kelvin Banks at 33.5, he's literally right in between those. So it wouldn't be completely unprecedented for a 49ers draftee to have arm length of 33.5 and not the quote unquote required 34 inches. But while his arm length might not be absolutely ideal, it's in the 48th percentile among offensive linemen, according to Mock Draftable. His wingspan, 84 3/8 inches, is in the 90th percentile.
Goodness me.
So I'm not really sure how that translates to the football field in terms of like how lengthy he is. Maybe that just means he has super broad shoulders, which obviously probably can't hurt you if you're an offensive lineman in the league. But I think the wingspan, like if they do draft him and there are questions about his arm length, that's going to be, I think, what John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan talk about. They'll be like, well, he doesn't have the arm length, but he has the wingspan, which is obviously, fingertip to fingertip, having your arms stretched all the way out. So, I think he's long enough to play left tackle. And the fact that he started every game of his career at Texas at left tackle, I would feel okay about him translating to left tackle in the league long term.
Yeah, he's got shoulders like a bank vault. Just a massive, massive human. That he measured in at 6'5" at the combine too is a pretty big deal because Texas listed him at 6'4". So he measured in at a solid 6'5" at the combine. Yeah, man, you just the athleticism checks out. Everything but the arm length checks out. And even then, like there's Will Campbell from LSU, right? Who's not the consensus top offensive tackle, but a player who many people have as their top offensive tackle, who's doing everything he can to get to 33-inch arms.
Right.
And people are still saying, oh, okay, well, it was 33 inches at his pro day. It wasn't at the combine, but he got to 33 inches on his pro day, so he's cool. He can play. Right?
Yeah.
So I if Kelvin Banks is, and I'm not anti-offensive line in the first round, but if Kelvin Banks is a player that they believe is going to, and whether they're right or not, we won't know for a year or two, right? But if he's a player they believe can eventually replace Trent Williams, and he's going to be Brock Purdy's left tackle protecting his blind side for the next decade, then you have to do that. Because you may not be picking this high again anytime soon. So I would get it there. But beyond that, if it's, well, he can play guard, or we'll see if he can play right tackle, we're sure he can play guard, and then we'll question mark about left tackle, then no. Then I'm out.
Right. I think the best plan for Kelvin Banks would be start him at left guard, have him play next to Trent Williams. Trent Williams ever gets hurt, has to miss time, you kick him out to left tackle. But you start him at left guard, have him play next to Trent, get used to that side of the line, and don't even, I mean, Colton McKivitz isn't a great right tackle. He's not a horrible one. I would say he's about replacement level.
Yep.
I think if your line is Trent Williams, Kelvin Banks, whatever the 49ers do at center, Dom Pooney and Colton McKivitz at right tackle, I think you're in an okay spot. I still think you have to upgrade center from Jake Brendel for sure, but that's not something they're going to do in the first round. But if they draft Banks and they're like, oh, he's our swing tackle and he's not among the starting 5 his first year,
brutal.
That would be tough.
You cannot do that.
You can't do that. But if you say, all right, we're going to draft Banks, he's going to be our starting left guard as a rookie, and then he'll replace Trent Williams whenever that happens, I'd be on board with that idea. I wouldn't love it, but if he does provide an upgrade over Aaron Banks at left guard, at least early on, as long as he starts, if he starts and plays at a high level, whether it's guard or tackle, that's like they need contributors right away.
If you're taking him 11th overall and he's not one of your 5 best offensive linemen on a mid-ass offensive line, you're doing something wrong.
Correct.
Like that, that's it. So, and I don't say that derogatorily. It's just the Niners don't have this awesome offensive line where you're like, man, where are you going to put a new starter? They literally don't have a starter at left guard, and they could upgrade at right tackle.
Yeah.
Pretty easily. So I'm with you there. The bigger deal though, in this Mel Kiper, Field Yates dueling mock draft thing, the bigger deal is what they do after they take Banks. Because obviously Banks would need to start. My guess is the 49ers would do what you said, put him at left guard and start him on that side of the line. The bigger deal is what they do with their next 2 picks. And with their next 2 picks in this mock, they take defensive linemen, 1 defensive end, 1 defensive tackle.
Yeah.
And that would be, I don't want to talk about the individual players just yet, but that would be the prerequisite to taking an offensive lineman in the first round. Would be they know on day 2 there are 2 defensive linemen that are going to be there that they like a lot and feel good about.
Yeah, and to me, I think that's probably the most under-discussed part of letting Malik Collins and Leonard Floyd go, is that maybe they just have a lot of conviction about dudes they like within the first 3 rounds of the draft at those spots. And they would rather draft those guys, develop those guys, than maybe, overpay veterans on the back end of their careers, right? Like that, to me, that's sort of what this whole thing screams. Like, I think we're kind of overthinking it when it's like, man, the 49ers let go of all their defensive linemen. Well, it is a very loaded and deep defensive line draft, both along the interior and the edges, it feels like. So there might not be, I mean, I don't know if they'll go Mike Green 11th overall. Like, I think Mike Green might end up being like a Micah Parsons type player, just based on the way he moves. But like, if it was something to where, they were very intentional on finding a Trent Williams replacement, 11 overall, certainly justifiable, but they have to go defensive line heavy from the rest of the draft out.
Yeah.
And yeah, like, I think if it's Pierce, like Kiper and Yates mocked to the 49ers in round 2, and then the Texas defensive tackle with super long arms in round 3, like that, to me, all tracks. Like, I'm just team trenches for the 49ers in this draft. So that would be fine. That would be fine for me, but they have to hit on those guys. I mean, that's the thing. Like, we can talk about, I'm fine with them letting those veterans go if they want to draft and develop guys, but they have to hit on those guys. If they miss in rounds 2 and 3 on defensive linemen that are replacing Malik Collins and Leonard Floyd, then that's a really terrible situation. If they happen to draft guys who are like starting caliber, really good players who play at a high level on their rookie contracts, then John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan look like geniuses for this reset, because they'll get younger and keep the window open. But it's a tough needle to thread, but I don't blame them for trying. They just have to hit it. They have to hit on rounds 2 and 3 if that's the way they're going along the defensive line.
That's it. Like, and one way they can do that is, one way they can do that is with what happens in this ESPN mock. James Pierce Jr., the defensive end from Tennessee, The 49ers are taking him 43rd instead of 11th.
Yeah.
And he is Dane Brugler. Again, we're working off of the beast, Dane Brugler's outstanding draft guide. He is the 7th ranked edge rusher, but the 36th overall prospect. He hits every box you could want. 6'5", 245, 32 and 3/4 inch arms. He has 29 and a half tackles for loss in his career, 19 and a half sacks in his career in 39 games. He has the measurables. He's got the production. It's just the big time production didn't come until, well, it came in the last 2 years. And he only started 12 games at Tennessee in the 39 games he played. So there's some question marks about him. Maybe he needs some development, but you can take that chance at 43 way more than you can take that chance at 11.
Right.
You still need him to work out. You're right. You still need James Pierce, if you're taking him 43rd, to be a good player. You can't just have him be bad and go, well, hey, at least we didn't take him 11th. That doesn't work. He still has to be a good player. But I like the risk a little more at 43, or I like it a lot more at 43 than I do at 11.
Right. It can't be like they would really hamper themselves if they drafted another Drake Jackson in the second round. Right. Like that would be tough. But going back to sort of the discussion, just like on first round edge players versus, second round edge players or day 2 edge players. In Brugler's listing of edge defenders, he has 10 guys who either he lists as first or second rounders or second rounders or second and third rounders. So the 49ers could have a lot of options for edge rushers early in the second round. And whether it's Pierce, whether it's JT Tuimoloau, I'm not even the Ohio State defensive end.
Sure.
Yeah, Landon Jackson, Jordan Birch, Jack Sawyer, also Ohio State, Nick Scorton, Texas A&M. Like, they're potentially going to be a lot of edge players available for the 49ers when they pick in the second round. And even like, I think the same is true along the defensive line. Like you're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 guys with potential second round grades on Brugler's rankings.
Defensive tackle.
Yeah. So like you're basically, 18 potential edge players or defensive tackles within that range of where the 49ers are picking in the second round. So that to me, like if you believe the meat of this draft along the defensive line is a second and third round, if you want to go offensive tackle, you want to go cornerback in round 1, like this might be the draft class to do that. And I think the logic pans out, but again, like they just have to hit on these dudes.
Yeah, Trent Williams replacement or best player at any position is fine in round 1 as long as you're doing this in rounds 2 and 3.
Yeah.
And then they round out the ESPN mock with a corner at 100 overall, which it's fine. Yeah. So
they need a corner or two in this draft.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. So that's it to me. I do think it's interesting that Yates just kind of out of nowhere put Kelvin Banks to the Niners at 11. That's not a thing he's been doing. It's not a thing that Kuiper's been doing because they alternate picks in this. So that kind of puts my antennas up.
Yeah.
But I don't hate the idea, especially if you're sitting there at 11 and you're like, we love Kelvin Banks and we're kind of on the first round defensive lineman the same way we are with some of the guys on day 2 and 3. Then I think it's a smart way to go.
I've really liked Kenneth Grant from Michigan the more I've watched him. And I think he would be a perfectly justifiable pick at 11. But the thing that, I think people will say, or the internet consensus will say, is like, well, he's probably more closely ranked as like the 18th to 24th best prospect or whatever. I've even seen some in this Kuiper and Yates mock draft. He was a second round pick, which man, if they ended up with Kelvin Banks and Kenneth Grant, their first 2 picks, that would be unbelievable because Grant is somebody I would feel great about taking at 11, to be honest. But I think when I talk about like, oh, I hate him, like I'm kind of over the thinking, particularly with this draft class, of like, hate him at 18, or sorry, hate him at 11, but love him at 18. Like, I think the guys like 12 through 40 are all so closely bunched that I'm just kind of throwing out that line of thinking. Like, if you like a guy at 18, you should like him at 11 because you're like really splitting hairs in terms of ranking these prospects. I've decided that I feel the same way about Banks. Like, if I think Banks is like the 20th best prospect, well, if you really believe in the character and you really believe in the durability of it, of him as a player, given he missed 0 games at Texas, then I don't hate him at 11 if he's the 20th best prospect or whatever. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Mm-hmm.
And if the plan is like, yeah, he's going to be our starting left guard as a rookie, and then if Trent Williams gets hurt, we'll kick him out to left tackle, or I like that idea as long as he's just on the field. I don't know how much I would love the idea of switching him to right tackle, given he's played so much time on the left side. But if he can do it, he can do it. And like having, Trent Williams at left tackle and this kid at right tackle would be certainly, like, if he can do it, that would work for me.
Yeah.
But just plugging him into left guard, I would say obviously not ideal for a first round pick, but obviously if the plan is to move him out to left tackle, then you feel okay about it.
I also think it doesn't exclude the 49ers from taking another offensive tackle later.
Oh, sure.
Like Charles Grant, the kid from William and Mary,
Mm-hmm.
who just checks a ton of boxes. He just played at William and Mary, and so there's questions about the competition level, right? Where if you want to take that player and have him be the swing tackle and now give yourself 2 shots at a potential Trent Williams replacement, I still don't hate that idea, even if they go OT at 11.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, taking multiple offensive linemen makes sense. Like, if they came out of this draft with 3 offensive linemen and they drafted a center in the middle rounds, I would feel really good about that for them.
Yep.
I would feel really good if they took another corner. I'd feel good about them getting another receiver. They have so many positions of need that, like, really the only, like, they need a linebacker. The only position I'm like, they probably don't need another dude right now is safety. And I know you lost Talanoa Ufunga, but like, unless you really want to replace Jair Brown,
Yeah,
you're probably not doing that with like a 5th round pick.
probably
But
not.
probably not. I don't know. Unless you just get a hooper in the 5th round, like they did, like, I mean, it's possible. We've seen them do it before, but like, I would say safeties, and maybe tight end are the positions where I'm like, if they didn't come out of the draft with that, with one of those spots, I would like be okay with it.
Yeah.
Right. But like everywhere else, it's like they just need as many good players as they can get.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's going to defensive line is a little bit of a different story, literally just because of their lack of bodies at the position.
Yeah.
But everything else, I'm with you, man. I know get good players is like kind of a bit that we do here, but I think it gets overlooked a lot with the draft. We get so deep into the weeds on need and who's on what board and whose rankings or what. It's like, bro, like positional value, whatever, just get good players. If you're using this draft to rebuild your roster to try and rebuild non-derogatory, if you're trying to rebuild your roster, you can't limit yourself to by position.
Yeah, I agree.
We're trying to open another Super Bowl window, and I know we say that a lot, but it bears repeating.
Yeah, we should get out of here on this. I just think the draft talk is funny because, like, when you talk about like impact players in the playoffs, or you're like watching replays of like a defensive lineman really dominating, not like, oh man, that guy really used his 34.25-inch arms to to get past the offensive lineman there. You know what I mean? It's like, no, he's a really good player. He did something that really good players do, and he got to the quarterback. It's we get so tied up in traits, and like, I get it, traits are important, right? But like, there are a lot, like, it's very hard, particularly for teams that want to be good, like the 49ers want to be good next year. It's very hard to like project a guy with traits who just wasn't very good at playing football. Right. I feel like there are a lot of those type of prospects this year, and I'm just like, man, just avoid it like the plague. Like Shamar Stewart, I'm out. Like Michael Williams, just not really, like, he's got the traits, and sure, maybe he was on a bum ankle or whatever, but just like, are we sure that dude is good at football, like really good at football, or was he just like a big prospect who looks awesome in pads and went to a blue blood program? Like, that's, I'm a little worried about that. Whereas you look at like Kelvin Banks, and yeah, maybe he's not like the toolsiest guy or has the best traits, but it's like, well, he played left tackle at a really high level for a long time and didn't miss any games. Like, there's a lot of value in just having a high level, high character left tackle who you think like, oh, this guy could probably get 3 contracts with us and like be at a Pro Bowl or better level, a la Joe Staley or Trent Williams or whatever.
Yep. The player I always go back to, because I wrote this post for you at Niners Wire, it was Cooper Kupp.
Yeah.
It was okay. Yeah, he played at Eastern Washington, but look at his numbers. He checks the size boxes. He gets open, and then he catches the ball.
Yeah.
Like, is he a little slow? And did he play at a smaller school or at an FCS school? Yes. But man, he's really good at the sport.
Right. And Kevin White completely blew up the combine and was an amazing, amazing at exercising, was a top half of the first round pick, and then just didn't do anything.
I think he was top 5.
Yeah. I don't remember off the top of my head, but it was a lot of like, are we sure he's good at football? It's like, well, do you see his combine numbers?
He did blow up the combine, though. He was unbelievable. I don't want the
Taylor Mays. So anyway, not to rant against like the combine and scouting. It's just funny that like when we're actually watching the games, we're not being like, well, he would have got to the quarterback if his arms were a quarter of an inch longer. He would have made that block. So anyway.
Dang.
What's up?
I was looking for Kevin White info, and I came across an article written by Daniel Jeremiah that compares him to Julio Jones and calls him the top receiver of the 2015 draft. It says, I love Parker, Cooper, and Dorian Green-Beckham on tape, but West Virginia's Kevin White is my top wide receiver. He has the same traits as Julio Jones. Traits, but wasn't good at football like Julio Jones.
Right. Right. I would consider being good at football the most important trait.
It is very key. I would agree with you.
Not to shit on any talent evaluators.
That's not it. I use a lot of talent evaluators' work for sure.
Right.
I just think sometimes we as fans get over our skis with the measurables.
Right.
And don't just look at, man, can the guy hoop? Can the guy play?
Javon Kinlaw on paper, traits, measurables, like should have been an all-pro.
Yep.
And then Javon Kinlaw is getting shoved all over the field. And
that's 3-year, $45 million man Javon Kinlaw to you. He's doing something right.
I will eat something I don't like to eat if Javon Kinlaw sees all 3 years and all $45 million of that contract.
I bet.
It'll be food, not like a shoe, but like I'll eat like a celery stick or something if Javon Kinlaw.
Celery stick. Sure, man.
I like celery juice. The sticks miss me with the celery sticks. Anyway, let's get out of here.
Yeah, please. Celery talk.
Subscribe, rate, and review. We'll talk to you guys soon.